Hi everyone, this is Jared, AC7WH, Backyard Ham Radio. I've got my amplifier back and I've been using it for lots of QSOs. In fact, I was able to reach New Zealand and Japan and Australia today, and I've had other QSOs as well, and they have been very successful. The challenge is I'm not sure how much to trust my Icom IC7300. More about that later. But for now, let's take a look at how this amplifier is working. Now, to give you a quick heads up, you can check out my previous videos for more information. You can look on my playlists and you can see the playlist and video links at the end of this video. But in any case, I have the amplifier not only repaired by Palstar, but everybody there was very helpful. So thanks to Eva and Mark and Candy and Shelby, everybody with Palstar has been very helpful and I appreciate them a lot. So it did take a while for everything to be taken care of, but that's because parts had to be ordered. So, for those who don't know, Palstar has recently found that the original transistors, the LD MOS transistors that were used in the Palstar LA-1K, are no longer available, at least at this present time for them. So they actually have an upgraded version that is reportedly more reliable and potentially more powerful. So that's like a win-win. So the awesome thing is, because this was still under warranty when I sent it back, I was able to get the bad transistor replaced. There were only 2 transistors for the power transistors. Out of those 2, one went bad, the other one had not. However, Palstar went ahead and upgraded both of them, and I only had to pay for the one that was being replaced that was still good. So the one that went bad, it was replaced under the warranty, which is excellent. And then I did have to cover shipping. That's the standard procedure, standard policy. It's well presented on the Palstar website, so I was expecting that. It wasn't like some unpleasant surprise or whatever. So I do appreciate Palstar for letting that be known from the get-go. So with that, also on the test bench, the power supply had burnt out. There's a bit of a story to that, but the good news is it was taken care of, and Palstar covered that for me 100%, which was awesome. And not only that, but I also was told that my power switch was being replaced just in case for the Palstar. And that was because of the flickering light in the neon switch. Now, on the neon light, I can show you later on in this video, but I don't notice any difference. Just, you know, being open there, and neon lights do tend to flicker with almost any sort of difference in like electromagnetic waves, those sorts of things. So with that, I'm not really worried about the neon lamp inside of the power switch, but I am happy to have a new power supply. I was noticing some quite noticeable birdies, the whistling sounds or whatever you want to call them, from the power supply, the internal power supply of the amplifier, the Palstar LA-1K. And so it's just as well that was replaced anyhow, even though it was a bit unexpected. And then the transistors, I'm really happy about those. But with that, let's take a look at how this does on standby. And I have my Icom IC7300 set to 32% of the 100 watts approximately that it is rated for. So I should be seeing on a single sideband here, upper sideband on 28.970. I know it's reading 28.972 from the frequency counter, but that can vary depending on how long you're transmitting and so forth for the frequency counter to get a good reading there. But anyhow, on my HF auto antenna tuner and on the Icom IC7300, it's registered as 28.970. But in any case, I've got it set so we should be seeing about 32 watts peak. Now this is again on sideband, so it's going to vary with my voice, especially since I do not have the compression turned on. I have my microphone gain on the standard Icom mic from the factory. I have that at 50%, but no compression. And I learned from experimenting that, and from what I saw online with someone who did a very detailed test with something like an oscilloscope, I found that with the Icom IC7300, the power output tends to be more stable and more predictable if you do not use compression when you're connecting it up to an amplifier. Anyhow, quick side note, I have my ALC not only at the same setting that I had before, which was registering as -4 on the main screen or -350 in the ALC selection screen, but I actually turned it up even more to be sure to protect these transistors, even though they are supposed to be more reliable and produce more power and all of that. I don't want to take a risk because that's a lot of work and money and so forth to get those sort of things replaced. In any case, it is now set to 400 for a solid ALC in my opinion. Anyway, so quick test here on standby. This is Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Testing, testing. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. You can see that the power indicator here is going up a little bit above 20. It's hard to see from that angle, but this first little spot here is 20. Then 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. So let's see if I can get just a little bit better view there. Yeah, because of the way the screen works, it's a little bit difficult, but that's okay. But you can see, though, and hopefully trust me, that that is right around as a peak. Test, 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 check, check, Alpha, Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. So less than 30 is what it's peaking at. On my HF Auto, it's registering a peak power of 27, I just saw, 20, 25, 21. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel, 26, 24, 24, 26. Okay, I've stopped transmitting for a moment. So overall, not counting any millisecond spikes or anything like that, when you set the transceiver to 32 watts approximately, so 32% to be more exact, it's not having some crazy output. Now, on the amplifier here, it's supposed to be fine as long as you don't put out more than about 60 watts. Now, normal function would be about 40, 45 or so that you're putting out from the transceiver into the amplifier. And then you can get your full power output. Now, I like to try to tune for about 800 watts, so I'm not maxing out the amplifier. Even though those transistors that are upgraded are supposed to be able to handle more, I don't want to risk it. However, in using the Icom IC7300, a lot of the time, I feel like I'm seeing it at like 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 watts, and then all of a sudden it'll spike up to 1,000 or more just out of the blue, even though I still have it set to a lower range, like around 32 watts that are coming out. Now this is with the 120 volt power outlet, which is the standard here in North America, about 110 or 120. But before I just keep describing things, let's go ahead and demonstrate. So I'm going to go ahead and go to operate. And it is so nice, though, to have power with the amplifier again. So this would be a perfect time. If any of you are familiar with Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear, the classic BBC Top Gear, this is a perfect time for him to say, "Power!" So check out that little video that I'm including in the link up there. If you want to laugh at least, right? Okay, so let's see how this does now. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Testing, checking. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. You'll notice here it's at about 500, 400, 600 watts. So about 700 there. Checking. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Let's try again with talking while I'm just starting to press the microphone. Letting up on mic now. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel, so no problem there. It's hanging down maybe around 600 or so on the 10-meter band. 28,970, that's reading perfectly with the Icom IC7300. So you'll notice without compression that there is quite a variance based on my voice. But let's just try a few things. ABC 123 Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. I'm going to try a little whistle here. So just be prepared. If you have headphones on, it might sound a bit loud. All right, enough whistling. Okay, Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. I'm talking at quite a high volume, as you can tell. And I have the microphone relatively close to my mouth, and it is not going above about 600 to 700, maybe getting close to 800. And on the HF Auto, it is registering right now between 300 and 600 most of the time. All right, check. That was 678. Okay, so with that, as you can see, it's fine. However, I have seen it spike all of a sudden higher than that when I least expect it, and I'm trying to get through a pileup, and I'm still not entirely sure what does that. I am almost certain it's the Icom IC7300. Okay, letting up on the transmission now. Okay, so you can see here 37 degrees Celsius is what it's registering. I'm going to try to get you a better view there. Notice how the scale goes up higher, all the way up to 1400 up here. Now that I have the higher power that's gone through. Okay, so as you can see on at least this band, 10 meters, there's not really an issue there. I have it at 32 watts approximately coming out of the Icom IC7300, and I was getting close to about 700 or so out of the Palstar amplifier. Now, let me show you something else here. I'm going to actually see if I can get my phone off of the little microphone, not microphone stand, but phone stand rather. Okay, there is that neon light. You can see it does still flicker some. Not a big deal, but you do see it. Okay, now here is the HF Auto. When I last transmitted, it was right at 400 watts. I have this tuned for 1.02 to 1. This is registering a 1.1 to 1, so pretty close. Here's my Icom IC7300. And let's see if we can get a good view of the power there. So RF power, 32%. Compression is off. If I turned it on, it would be set to a 3. Microphone gain is 50%. Got the monitor turned off. So with that, it's doing okay, but still, it seems to be unpredictable. I was using this on 40 meters earlier, and I had it set to 25% up here. 25%, which should theoretically be about 25 watts. And I was getting a power reading on here of like spikes at over 1,000 watts. So I don't want to go that high with it. And the fact is, it would be unpredictable. So some of the time it would be like at 400 or 800, and then all of a sudden, just talking essentially the same way, it seemingly would be out of the blue spiking at over 1,000. So not sure what to make of that, other than it seems that the Icom IC7300 is infamous for those sort of things. So I am a little bit on the fence about whether or not to get a Yaesu radio. I'm hoping not to have to buy one because I really like this Icom IC7300, but it seems as if no matter what settings I use for the ALC and for the compression and all of those things, I can't seem to get a consistent output from the transceiver and therefore output from the amplifier. Let's just try this one more time here. It's late at night here, and so this frequency is not really interfering, but of course I still give my call sign. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel testing. Let's see how this power is holding here. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Check, check, check. As you can see, it's not spiking up really high. If we look here on the HF Auto, Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Check, check, check. Test, test, test. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 2, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 672 is our peak there. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. Check, check, check. Test, test, test. Alpha Charlie 7 Whiskey Hotel. All right, so things seem to be holding pretty steady, but 711. That was one little peak there, but it was within my 800 watt range that I was shooting for. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I'll keep an eye on it, but on at least 40 meters, it seemed like it had a harder time being more consistent. But I think the amplifier is fine. I'm going to go ahead and stop transmitting. So amplifier seems to be fine, but the transceiver, I feel like, is putting out an unpredictable power level. So we'll see. Most of the time it's fine, but I don't want to risk damaging anything, especially since this was just repaired and upgraded. All right, if anybody has any suggestions or comments or questions, feel free to drop those below. I hope you'll take a moment to subscribe if you haven't yet, and thank you so much. Maybe I'll hear you on the air one of these days. That would be great. I'd love to have a QSO with you. This is Jared, AC7WH, Backyard Ham Radio, and 73.